So flats are very common in our sport. So we're just going to go through on how to change a tire and also inspect a rim. So you're going to need some tire tools. Spoons are really nice, and just take your time and pull the tire off. We're going to pull the tire and tube, obviously replace the tube, but pull the tire completely off and go ahead and take a look at the rim. Make sure there's no cracks, no burrs, anything that once we put it back together that could cause another flat. So once he gets the tire off, we'll just look at it, run our fingers over it, make sure we don't feel anything, and then we can put the new tube in and get back to the... These tires are tight and they're designed to be tight. There's actually a bead on the edge of the tire that fits inside the rim, and there's a bead inside the rim to almost like clinch it together. So yeah, once you get the tire off, you just want to take and you want to run your hand and really take a look at the whole wheel and make sure there's nothing wrong with it. Especially like a crack in the wheel or anything like that, because it's just going to cause you to have another flat. That might be the reason you're having flats. Any kind of burrs, you'd want to take a file and file those burrs down and just make sure there's nothing that's going to cause that tire to go flat without getting hit. So this wheel looks really good. So then once you're putting it back on, you want to put one side of the tire on. And then once you get one side of the tire on, then you want to put your tube in. Make sure that you get your tube, put it through the hole first, put your stem through the hole first, and then start to move your tube around and make sure that the tube is seated inside the tire really well. Pull the tire back, get your tube in there. You gotta have to kind of stretch the tire back around the tube. But then you just want to feed it in and make sure that that the tube is all the way inside the tire. You don't want to be able to see the tube, because you don't want to take the chance of, once you put it back together, that spoon catches that tire and pops that tube. All that work was for nothing. There's different ways to do it. It's all preference. Some people like to add a little bit of air to the tube to make sure that it sits right in there. Some people just like to make sure that they go through and they make sure that tube is all the way pushed inside the rim. There's not a wrong way or a right way. It just all depends on what your preference is. My preferences have changed over the years. I used to put air in the tire and now in the tube, and now I don't. So, but here you just want to make sure that tube is all the way in there, so when that tire comes across it, that you're not pinching that tube. If you ever pull the tire on there and you see the tube, then go ahead and back everything off, push that tire in further, and then start over again. With tubes over $5 a pop now, I think they are. You want to make sure that you take your time and you're not having an unnecessary flat. So he's actually pushing the tube in there and making sure it gets in there. He's watching the tire go onto the rim. There's different tire tools out there. You know, the spoon was nice taking it off. This little gadget right here is really nice putting it on. Tires on. So there's different tools out there, so it's all depending on what your preferences is. And voila, there we go. Changed tire, inspected the wheel, ready to go. Another thing, when you're changing a tire, I didn't look over, but you could also look over the tire itself and say you might have a little bit of rip in there. Instead of just replacing the tire, you could put a little bit of duct tape in there to act as some reinforcement. Make the tire last a little bit longer. Some tools that you will need, these are the tire tools. These are spoons. There's different kinds of spoons out there. So like I said before, it's all about preference. These are a metal spoon. They also make these in plastic. The other nice thing about is this is another tire tool. And so this is more for pitting on the last end of it, to where it just goes around the tire and it pulls the tire up and over. So you don't have to use your fingers or use a spoon and try to, because usually at the end of putting the tire on is usually when you end up popping the tire. So that's where this comes in really nice.